Hi there, Andy here. Hi Engineering 1210. I just wanted to finish up this tutorial number 3 of building a CAD assembly for a birdhouse with a couple of just cleanup features at the end. Now, there's almost no end to the amount of detail that you can put in a CAD model for a part you're going to build. There is kind of a trade-off of, do you want to keep actually putting more and more detail into the simulated or the CAD model thing, or do you want to get around to building the first try of it? That's hard to navigate sometimes, hard to know when to stop. But there's a couple of things that that will help a little bit, and I just want to finish up with a couple of useful details, and you probably will use these things again. So let's get started. So here's the model that we left off with. Now, notice that one of the things that I did was I made this bottom part, and I kind of made it as an insert into the bottom of the folded piece. And you can almost imagine using that as the guide to fold the thing around, which, that'll help it stay aligned and stay shaped properly. I did say also you'll need to think of how to attach the roof, because in the CAD model, while it's kind of looks like it's attached, there's nothing holding it in place. So you need to sort that one out. What I will show you, however, is that you might want to maybe put some screw holes in this thing to hold it together. So let's go through the process of doing that. So the first thing is, it's nice to have some idea of where the holes might go. Now, you'll see over on the right-hand side that SOLIDWORKS has this design library. And if you roll your mouse over like I've just done, I'll go back to the top, that it shows up as a toolbox. And when you first open up your SOLIDWORKS, it should find for you or create for you a folder in which all of these design library things are located. And it could be anywhere on your computer, or if you're using a shared drive on campus, it might actually be in a shared folder, whatever. SOLIDWORKS, when you installed it, will have created this for you. And you'll see that there's a whole bunch of possibilities here. A lot of them you don't really care about at this point. It's kind of interesting to see a Korean standard for bits and pieces, but probably not what you want, or a military spec for the US military. If you're going to build a fighter jet or something, hey, go to it. But for now, because we're in Canada and we work in metric, but we're in North America, so I typically use ANSI metric. ANSI stands for something, or American National Standards Institute. It's an old name, it's not that name anymore. But regardless, there are a bunch of fittings you can buy at the hardware store, which are standard designs. You don't need to design your own screws and bolts and washers and O-rings and those sorts of things. Rather, you can use this design library, and you'll see that there's all kinds of screws. Now for this, we're probably going to want to use self-tapping screws, because this bottom piece is either plastic or wood, and there's a bunch of choices of screws. Now, I could just simply select this pan head screw and drag it into place, and there it is. Now I can select the size. I could pick metric M2, 0.4 inches long, and any number of things. I could also go over here to the configuration, and I could say, well, 4 inches, 4 millimeters long. I want more than 4 millimeters. I probably want that to be, I'm going to make it 10 millimeter would be a reasonable length. And you can see that this shows up in the model as a new part, which is great. The thing it doesn't do quite as easily is where do you put it? I haven't put any holes in the model that a screw would fit in, so I'm just gonna save that, and I can put in more of them if I like as well. But they need a place to go first. So right now that's just it's a new part, as you see in the part file, but it's not associated anywhere. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the original birdhouse part. Now, if you select either in the parts list here, the parts tree, you can select the part you want to open. And you'll see if you right click it, then there's a bunch of choices of things you can do with it. One of them, the open part, and another one that's quite similar is the edit part. Now the difference between doing those two things is edit part will allow you to pretend working within the assembly tool like you're actually just working in the part tool, but it's within the context of the assembly. Whereas open part actually opens the separate file in a part environment. And I'm going to start off by doing that. Sorry, I've opened that part, and there we are, this part that we originally started with. And I want to put some holes in which, in the assembly, I'm going to orient some screws. And I could do it by doing an extruded cut of a circle in a particular spot, and that's pretty easy. But there's also another kind of convenient feature in SolidWorks, and it's this hole wizard. If you click right beside extruded cut hole wizard, click the down arrow, and I'm just going to select hole wizard, and you'll see that it comes up with a window on your left with some interesting looking things. It's got some hole types you can choose from, depending on what kind of hole you're going to create. I'm just going to make a standard hole, so I'll pick that one. You'll see that there's different sizes you can pick, and a lot of these are different standards. I could pick ANSI inch or ANSI metric. Well, because I'm going to use metric screws, I might as well pick metric holes, and then I can pick hole sizes. Am I going to pick a 3mm hole or a 6mm hole? Really, it will depend on what particular screw I'm going to use. I'm going to use a 3mm, a metric 3mm screw, so I'll pick a 3mm hole. Now, you'll also want to think about whether it's going to be a clearance hole or whether it's going to be a hole that will be threaded. That would be in this hole type. You can have drill sizes, you can have screw clearances, you can play with all those things. I'm just going to pick dowel holes just for the sake of doing the video. And so that defaults my selections. One other thing is I can select the end condition. I'm going to pick a blind hole because I know I'm going to use a 10mm screw. I'll make a blind hole that is not 122mm long, but maybe I'll make it 12mm long. There. Now if you go to positions, I can go around this part that I've created, and I can select, just by clicking, where that hole will go. Whoops, didn't want that. And so that's going to pick that surface that I put the hole on. And if I click accept, made a bit of a mistake there. I did put this hole in the part, and you can see that it's gone through that one side. Now, just like all the features, this feature, even though it was sort of an automatic hole, was created with sketches. There's two sketches that SolidWorks automatically created. The first one is the location of the hole. So I can edit that. Edit the sketch. I didn't want to have that whole location, I'll just delete that. But this one, I did want, and I want to dimension it. I don't want it to be just randomly placed. So I'm going to put a dimension from there to the hole. I think 8 millimeters from that ought to be fine. And I want to make a dimension from there to the base. Whoops, base to there. Try that again. Base to there. Why isn't it doing it? Let's get out of that tool. Sorry, there. Smart dimension. Pick that. Pick that. And I think that I want that to be 5 millimeters. There. So that sketch is done. Now it automatically created this profile sketch of the hole, which I'm not going to bother changing because that is basically the geometry of a drill. In this case, a 3 millimeter drill. I could go around and I could do the same thing for the next hole. It saved the same selections that I chose the previous time. So I pick my hole position there. It will select that for me. And I think I will make, I'll edit that in a minute. I think I'd like to make a couple of screw holes on the back here too. So I'll pick positions, and I'll select there and there. Now I'm sure there's a way to easily define where those holes are going within that sketch. I don't know, I didn't find it. I just going to go and edit these, and once again I'll put some dimensions in. That position to there, I want that to be 5 millimeters, just like the other. That position to there, I want that to be 5 millimeters. And I think I'll make the spacing between these, I don't know, 30. And then I will orient them such that I'll try and move them so that they're better situated. Now I could just line them up so it looks nice. Not really the best scenario. What I'd like to do would be to dimension them so that if I pick this point and I should be able to pick the midpoint of here, I can make that 15. There. So they're centered 30 millimeters apart, 15 millimeters from the center point of that side. And those are my holes for that. Now this one, it's kind of off here in its own world. I just placed it. So I'm going to go and, like every sketch, I can make that that sketch, and I can select, if I go Control there, I can make that point on this sketch concentric with the first hole that I drilled. There. So now I've got 4 holes that will hold screws that will hold my bottom on. Now when I go to save it, I'll just go up to the Save button because this is a separate part file I've just edited outside of the assembly. If I go Save, it's saved the part file. And if I close it, it's going to come up with a window with a question that says, models contained in the assembly have changed. Yes, they have, because I just changed a part file. And I selected that I wanted to keep those changes. So now you'll see I've got those holes that I drilled in the other part are oriented in such a way that they're in my model. Now I could take my screw, I can select that face, and I can select, should be able to select, oh, maybe what I'll do is I'll pick mate. I'm going to pick that face, and I'm going to pick, if I can, I don't know why I can't, maybe I'll try, I'm going to pick that circle, and it's going to try to mate them. Now it mated them backwards, so I'm going to use this mate alignment. I'm going to flip them, and that's oriented them so that that screw is in the hole, and now I can move it. And in fact, what I want to have is another mate where I pick that face and the outside face and make them coincident. Bam. Now in my assembly, some of these assembly parts look kind of funny because I made this birdhouse one transparent. If I make it not transparent, then you can see that I've put that screw in the side. And you can do the same thing for the other holes as well. So this level of detail is seems like a bit much, but when you go to then make the part, the holes will already be oriented, already be lined up. So now you kind of know further how this whole thing is going to be assembled. And that's really important when we're doing really sophisticated and complex design, to think these things through ahead of time. So I'll stop there. Thanks. Long video, I appreciate it, but hopefully that will help you with some of the further details. See you soon.